Welcome to Screenfish Radio. I'm so glad you could join us this week as we are talking about Triangle of Sadness. And I am so thrilled to have two financiers, no, but a couple of friends to the show, Jason Ty and our new friend to the show, actually, in Daniel Maranan. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks, Steve.
Hey, good to be on.
I'm glad you could be here. Triangle of Sadness recently won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival. Directed by Ruben Ostlund, the film is told in 3 sections and tells the story of a cruise for the super rich. And when a disaster strikes and the ship sinks, it leaves the survivors, including a fashion model celebrity couple, trapped on an island, upsetting the balance of power. As always, this podcast is rated S for spoilers. And I cannot wait to talk about this one. But gentlemen, I would love to know what you think and what you thought of Triangle of Sadness.
Jason, you want to start? Or
Jason's in the office right now, actually. I love that background.
There's that background anywhere.
No, it was pretty good. The pacing was a bit long for the first part of the movie. I think it was like a good hour they were on the boat. The whole movie is just like the dynamic between rich and poor, and then like the twist with the boat crashing, which is in the trailer. That dynamic changing and switching things up. I think it's really interesting to see more the psychology of it and how that like really affects like your decisions and your relationships with other people. Overall, it was pretty good. It was funny. For sure. I think it was funny first and then like had something to say after. But no, overall pretty good, entertaining. Kind of gross at one point, but no, good movie. I liked it overall.
I thought it was beautifully shot. I thought it was thought-provoking. It really had a lot of things to say. Like coming from like how I grew up, I had a bit of bias entering in, thinking like, oh, like boo-hoo, rich people, but it wasn't that bad. Like I felt like I learned something out of it, but yeah, the pacing was weird. Like I feel like the trailer tricked me a little bit, like, but it was a bit all over the place, like pace-wise and like thematically, like I thought they were going with one idea in the beginning, but then they kept moving to like different ideas. But overall, it was capturing just like the psychology about being poor versus being rich, mostly being rich, but it like clashing with being poor at the second half of the movie, I suppose.
It felt like 3 different movies to me, and I know it's in 3 chapters. I know they tell it that way. But each one is so unique. Like the first chapter is really just the young couple in the restaurant. Like that's really all it is until they get on the boat, and then it's sort of like chapter 2. And of course chapter 3 is on the island. I thought that it was really well, like the script I thought was really good, and I thought it was way too long. But I kind of wondered if that was the point. Like it was a strange mix. Like I sat there and I was like, I am really uncomfortable in these conversations, but I think we were supposed to be. And like everything is thrown to the nth degree. So like I've never seen a film where there was 15 minutes of vomit. Could we have done that in 2 minutes? Maybe. But we got more vomit and poop in this film than I think I've ever seen in, let alone in any film that's actually semi-intelligent. Like, you know.
Were you guys waiting for the crash, like for the island? Because I saw the trailer first, and I was like, the whole time I was like, when are they gonna get to the island? When are they gonna get to
a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But,
If we didn't see the trailer, we'd have a different vibe on the pacing.
yeah, I was waiting for the crash because I guess that's like on the main display picture of the movie, right? There's like this island. At least it's like what we're expecting, and I don't know, like thematically, I was thinking of something like Castaway, and we got like a little bit of that, but there's a lot more like Parasite, I guess, that I saw.
That's a good comparison. I hadn't thought of Parasite, but definitely that's in there. Um, did either of you see Downsizing?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, with Matt Damon.
But I felt like there were still some similar themes um, in the Downsizing
For
because the whole
sure.
well, like downsizing, the idea was that you downsize your life and you live in this tiny house so that you can all be rich, but then there's still this poverty section that ends up being developed anyway, and that people just sort of ignore. I wasn't wait. See, I did not see a trailer before. I don't think I might have, um, but I wasn't like waiting for the island. In fact, when they got to the island, I was like, "There's more." I said, "Wait a second here." I just kind of thought the ship would go down and that would be the end of it. Um,
Yeah.
but there were some fascinating conversations in this movie, though. I have to admit, like that scene where
Yeah.
Woody Harrelson is arguing with the drunken, you know, crap salesman in his office. Um, again, it was very
Mm.
long. It was very long, but it was fascinating.
Well, okay, like in the beginning, like it was a weird start showing off just a bunch of models and like the model life for like the I guess our main characters, which later in the movie they don't really become as main as I expected them to be. But then like you see like this couple, like they're very affluent people, like for their age, like especially like with the jobs that they have. And then as their relationship just devolves really close to like a breakup, they all they need to do is just be honest with each other, and that was interesting. And I respected the movie to really bring up those ideas of some relationships just being symbiotic by like with marketing and that like it reminded me of a lot of things I see on YouTube of couples who are social media influencers, and they represent like a certain type of couple, but then behind the scenes it's often like they act a certain way for the viewers, for like the like the ad revenue. And it was cool that like the couple basically were honest to each other, like like one of the reasons why we're together is like the followers, and like for like the affluent lifestyle that we can get out of this. And I thought that was a little bit more grounded uh for like this type of movie, I suppose.
What did you guys think of the like how in the beginning of the movie he's like complaining about paying for the food and like always paying for the meal, and then she just kind of expects it, and then she what else does she do? She had no intention of paying. Like even later on, she admits that like yeah, I had no intention of paying. Like I was expecting you to,
Yeah.
and then I think she also says something on like you're the man you're supposed to, or something like that. But then later, when he is on the island and he's with Abigail, who is, I would say, the rich person in that scenario, he's like the girl, right? Or the girl, where he's like not really doing any work and he's just being pretty. And Abigail's
Mhm.
the breadwinner, and he's okay with it. So what did you guys think of that like comparison? Like what is it even trying to say? That like we all want to be in a position where we're like the gold digger? Or I don't know.
Are you saying that you want to be a gold digger, Jason? Is that
No, but I'm saying like he was complaining about her being one, and then he becomes one, and he's okay with it.
Mm.
He like he's complaining in the beginning. He's like, "This is wrong. Why am I paying all the time?" And then in the end, he's just like, "Oh, I'll dump Yaya for you, Abigail. I love you." Like he's infatuated because she can provide. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
that was so awkward in the beginning. But yeah, like to me, it felt like touching on like the topic of relationship expectations and like gender roles, I suppose, that like I guess like tackling that idea that in a relationship the man should provide, or like when the relationship is just starting out, like the woman want to test the man if like how much they can provide for her. And it is like weird at the same time because they're both very affluent people, and it seems like while they're tackling on gender roles, it just seems like they were just lacking a lot of communication as a couple. Like it was very shallow, and they had different expectations of each other, where the woman was just really there, like she straight up said like, oh, like one of the reasons why I'm with you is like for the marketing, like just for the influence, like the social media influence. While the guy seemed like he was looking for something more genuine, but it's funny because like between the two, he was more insecure.
You bring up that dining scene at the beginning. I thought that conversation was fascinating because I think you're right, Daniel, to bring up like power dynamics and like gender roles because, but I don't know. I just feel like these expectations are placed based on like, well, based on tradition of gender roles. And we don't know when once money and power are equated, we don't know how to differentiate these things once they infect these conversations. So like
Mhm.
everything going on in there was all about who's in control. Everything,
Mhm.
because he's mad that she he can't afford the meal, but he's mad that she's paying. And then when she does pay, he's mad because I'll pay anyway. Oh, fine, you invited me here, but it was all it was all about power to me.
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there, but it wasn't like he demanded power. It was like he didn't know who should have it. He was
Right.
uncomfortable not having
Yeah.
it, but he didn't really feel like he should. It was really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I loved his character, and I because I hated his character. I really like that was Carl and Yaya, and I hated Carl so much. But I was supposed to
Mhm.
hate Carl, so I think it was Harris Dickinson. He did a great job because I hated him.
mhm.
Yeah.
I loved her through the whole film. That's Charles B. Dean Creek, and it's crazy. I don't know. Like, did you hear? She actually died. Like the actress died
Yeah.
the week before the film premiered at the festival. Was like it's like nuts, especially the way the film ends.
It shows that he himself is a hypocrite
Mhm.
because when that situation, and he was like the one in that was using the only thing he could give was his body to Abigail Band, and she was the one in the power position. She was the one, metaphorically paying for him. So yeah, he is definitely like a hypocrite. He loves being in that position where he doesn't have to really do as much work and be the quote unquote gold digger. Um, it's interesting because is that saying like that's how most people would be? Like if they, if the situation did flip? Um,
Mhm.
I really don't know. I mean, you're a stay-at-home dad now, and now Alicia's the one providing. Is it? Are you happier now that like forget about like leaving Parkway, but just like the money aspect?
Am I happier with her being the breadwinner? The-
Yes, just the money part. Like
It's the best. Okay. No, honestly, and I mean, obviously,
You're Carl.
I'm Carl. I complain when she pays for dinner, but I can't afford it. So no, no. The truth is for us, it really wasn't much. It's not much of an issue. I don't care. I don't care if I'm making more or less than she is because we pool our money. So all that matters to us
Mm,
is how we how we navigate those things and what we decide to spend our money on. Like I personally, everybody can make their own decisions. I understand that, but I personally don't understand why married couples have entirely separate bank accounts. And I don't mean that they can't have their own bank account, but I mean like they view their money as their own. I just don't understand that personally because I'm like you both have the same debt
mm,
and you both have the same bills to pay. But that's another whole conversation. So for me, honestly, that was not an issue.
yeah.
I think, I mean, my with my salary dropping the way that it did, and it significantly lower, like probably about a third of what I was doing before. That is stressful to me, not because I think I should be making more.
Right.
It's just the amount is lower, and that bothers me. That bothers her.
Yeah.
But it's in terms of whether or not somehow gender plays into it. I couldn't care less. I do know people that matters for, and I just don't understand that. Like again,
Right.
it depends on how you view your relationship, I suppose.
Yeah, like I feel like if nothing's communicated and there's always that concern about like who has more power and how they're both doing like together with money or like separately as money, like if there's no communication, like it's always going to be uncomfortable, like, right?
How do you guys pay for dates? You guys just split it evenly, or do you?
It we take turns, but I feel like mostly I would prefer to pay, but then I feel like nowadays with our culture, I am very open for my partner like paying for me. Like it kind of like we vibe it out and vibe. Hey, and like it cancels out at some point just naturally. Like it's I know some couples that they have a like an app that tracks like purchases, and like I respect that a lot. But I think like yeah, like as long as it's verbally communicated and that money never really becomes an issue, then it's yeah, it's just like just communicate. That's that's my 2 cents. Like
Has there
it'll work.
has there ever been a time where you felt like you were paying too much?
Mm, no, not
Am
really.
I the
I'm
age
honestly,
to be watching this?
I hope you're not listening. No, like it I look at the privilege that I have, and I also look at myself as like what I'm comfortable of paying, and also the fact that like I have a partner who's as frugal as I am, but also we might spend a bit more at other times, and there's like we just work it out. Like we'll go out to dinner and spend 50 to 100 bucks for dinner, and then we'll look at tickets to a concert, and then okay, it's 100 $200 per person, like maybe not, and we can align like our financial goals together and not not have to worry about like paying too much. Like it just happens, like as long as we are able to say like hey, like are you okay if I pay, like it's always there. I think like double check before eating like somewhere, like purchasing something, like hey, like are you okay with this, and it always works out.
I like what you're describing. Again, I think what you said there is very humble. Like you guys, it, to me again, it comes down to oh you. Um, I think it all comes down to humility, though. It depends on like or power. Again, it's like if we associate some need for control in any relationship, and not just any relationship, like we're talking about a relationship between the couple here, but it's very, very clear that this is what goes on throughout the film as well. I mean, how quickly does that turn sour? Like that whole thing
Mm,
on the island, um, like for crying
rough.
out loud, it's like it starts out with who gets all the fish.
Mm,
And oh, I got all the fish, so one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me, one for you, and it's like all of a sudden everybody's got one and she's got 10, you know.
mm.
You
Um,
think that's like an anti-communism scene, or like what do you think that scene was pro or con for?
yeah, I would love to hear. I would love to hear Daniel. You and I talked about this a little bit after we saw it. I'd love to hear Daniel's take on this film. Is this film anti-communism or anti-capitalism,
Um,
or
I
either?
don't know if it's. I didn't really think this through, but I didn't really feel like it was anti anything, like vehemently like anti anything. Like it was just exploring the ideas of, I suppose, what uh, class divisions are like nowadays, and how uh, it's it's hard to say like what the movie stands for. Obviously, like it's leaning towards a side of like maybe things should be more equal, right? And like if they're not equal, then this is what it looks like the fish still, like most of the fish still goes to the ones who are in power. But I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm throwing it back at you guys. It's a big question. That's
I think I think now it explores both sides, but I think it shows like the disadvantages of both. I
yeah,
definitely don't think it's pro-capitalism, but I think
it's
after
harder.
seeing that, I think about that campfire scene a lot, where she does all. I think that scene is anti-communism. It has to be because when she catches all, well, communism being like everything's equal no matter what. That's like the ultra like communism where everything's totally equal no matter what. Um, and then when she catches the fish, she does like pretty much all the work. And then when
Yeah.
they say, "Hey, we did stuff too," it's like, "What'd you do?" And they're like, "Oh, we got the wood." And it's like, well, I made the fire. I did literally everything else. I did every hard part. And then everyone else is sitting except me. Why should it be equal? And I think there's no way watching that scene, you're like, oh no, it should be equal. Everyone gets octopus. No, like you go, no, she should get more food. She did all the work. So it's, I think the movie has to be like a cons for both.
Hmm.
Mm,
I don't know.
mm.
And what did you guys think of that campfire scene? Like, I do think that was a anti-communism scene, but like, did you agree that she deserves more than everyone else in that group when did, she caught the octopus and everything?
I mean, it's exactly backwards as what the entire boat scene was like. Like you had the workers working like 12 hours a day, and the rich people were just eating and enjoying their time, like drinking and partying, and they had most of everything there. And then they're just playing the reversal on like the power, I suppose. Like I guess hard to decide if it's anti-communism. It just felt like a reversal of roles of power. Like
Mm.
But I think there's something there though, like on the dangers of, I guess, political ideologies that are far somewhere else. Like speaking of ideologies, like we had like that Woody Harrelson captain character and that guy who sells fertilizer. They weren't clashing as much. They were actually, it was really nice to see them just enjoy their time, and but also like throw these quotes at each other for what they represent for a little bit. And yeah, like I think uh, that's what I'm thinking right now.
I love that scene.
Mm.
Again, long, but I love that scene. It's just really well written.
Yeah, I like that scene too.
Um, yeah, it's fascinating. This is a fascinating film in a number of ways. I do think it's very well done because you're right, Daniel. The island is the exact opposite of the boat, and I love what Abigail says at one point. She goes, "On the yacht, toilet manager. Here, captain." You know, um,
Yeah, pretty.
it's it's so true. Like this was her job, was to take care of them, and now they are so bourgeois, they can't do anything. They have no practical skills. But then when the shoe's on the other foot, the same corruption creeps in. Um, so I don't know whether I would say it was anti. Well, I'd say it's anti both. I think what it is is just throwing everything out and saying, look, we cannot handle money at all. We have no concept of how to truly care for one another with money. Like the fact of Abigail gets corrupted by the end is so much more tragic than anything we see on the boat.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
because like she had her chance, and all of a sudden, what does she do? She's now living in a boat. Uh, she's living in a boat with a guy who she's sleeping with to give him pretzel sticks, so he can get like it's like oh my
Yeah.
gosh. Um, and then and then what do they say at the end? Yaya says, "Oh, we can finally go back to the way things were." So she tries. So does she kill Yaya
Yeah.
or not? I don't. We don't actually know, but
Yeah.
If if she did, do you guys think? Do you blame her? Like,
do I blame her for killing Yaya?
Well, further, Jason, I think we should.
Yeah, I would
Like,
start
I guess, like
rooting for her to do
thematically.
I I guess more. Do you blame her for wanting to keep the power she has on the island and not wanting to go back to being, at the bottom, being poor?
Oh, do I blame her in that way? Like she's not guilty of
Yeah.
murder. You're saying
She's
do I
willing
understand why she'd want to keep that? Yes.
and is willing to kill. Yeah.
To be honest, I actually was kind of surprised that the movie ended like that, that Abigail wants to murder Yaya. Like, the only reason why I think Abigail would want to do that is to keep that relationship she has with the guy. But I thought it was a weird twist of character development, because I never thought like Abigail coming from that position where she was in before the boat and after the boat, that she was capable of doing that. I can only imagine that it was just out of like preserving the relationship she had with the guy.
Hmm. I thought it was more just the whole power dynamic, like
Yeah,
just not being poor again and being a toilet cleaner. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
I,
know.
there's a number of things going on there. But I mean,
yeah,
seriously, like Carl, you're gonna kill
right?
Carl? Come on, man.
Yeah, yeah. Well, she really enjoyed Carl, so
She did.
I'm not saying I would enjoy that kind of company, but Abigail did at the cost of pretzel sticks too.
That's very reasonable rate. That's yeah. Oh, Carl.
I have a question for you guys. The director said something in an interview that he wanted to explore the concept of beauty as currency.
Ooh.
Now, like we might go back to about like when I mentioned about like modeling and like the relationship between the two, but I feel like there was more like beauty's currency theme that
Hmm.
came up like through the movie, and I just wanted to know what you guys thought. It's like what the director wanted to talk about.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Yaya sold her body to Carl, and then Carl's selling his body to Abigail. So it's definitely prevalent. And that, like, if you want to use Carl as an example, really the only thing he had to offer was his looks and his body. It was like nothing else, right?
Yeah,
Pretzel sticks.
Yeah, he sold it for pretzel sticks. Wow.
Better be good
Yeah.
pretzel sticks.
I wonder how much he made before the boat compared to
Not,
pretzel sticks.
not enough to pay for dinner.
Yeah,
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that quote. Um, but yeah, I could see that throughout. It's interesting because most people on the ship are not particularly attractive or young. Like they're all old money.
Do you think
yeah.
it's saying that the money has corrupted them and they're just hideous now or something?
Oh, I think everybody
It's
that touches money in this movie is corrupt.
right.
Arguably, the only one
It's
that isn't is Woody Harrelson.
right.
Hmm.
Sorry, Daniel, you were going to say something.
Oh, yeah. It's like speaking on that idea of money corrupting people. Like it comes from a perspective of, I guess, all of us regular folks agreeing that money should be distributed more evenly, but then I guess to the rich people in the boat, they didn't see that they were corrupted. Like they just felt like that they earned this money despite of the influence of what they've done to society, participating in capitalism and like racking up all that wealth, or not just like that, but then also that old couple that said that they invented hand grenades and then it coming back at them like prior to the crash. I thought that was pretty funny, but it touches on that too. Like technically, that's on some way we see it as they corrupted the world, but to them they just created a market. They're just like, if like anyone would have done it, but they did it. So it's, but like yeah, it makes me think about like the idea of corruption, I suppose, with money.
Well, one of the things I thought was interesting, and I want to touch on something you said there, Daniel. One of the wealth, actually, this is a theme that's mentioned the entire film, but it often comes from the wealthy. Everyone is equal. Keeps coming up. Like it's stated multiple times in the film. Now, I think we can see fairly plainly that that's not the case, that not everyone is equal in the film. But my question for you guys would be, do you think they believe it when they say it? Because it's just constant.
Thought that was kind of hypocritical, but I guess um, you know what it reminded me of? Remember that awkward scene of that old woman like in that jacuzzi was telling that worker like, "Hey, like come join me for a swim." And then
Everyone could.
the yeah, and then the woman was like, "Oh, it's okay. Like I work here, it's fine." And then the rich woman was like, "No, like seriously, come in. Like I insist." To the point like it was so awkward. Like the woman was like just pushing like, "Sorry, like I don't want to work. Like oh sorry, like I don't want to go in jacuzzi. It's not allowed. Like I'll get fired." And then like the rich person was like, "Oh, just like live your life. Just come on, let's do it." But then it's like it's easy for her to say because she's mega rich, while the the waitress is gonna risk her job doing something that what a rich person wanted to do. It like made me feel like I guess rich people can be delusional at that idea of everyone is equal.
I would say no, they don't believe it. I feel like it's something they're saying in the movie. The rich people are saying in the movie to make themselves like not sound like jerks, or to make themselves more relatable, or make the poor people feel
Yeah.
better, perhaps. Because there's a lot of moments where someone will say that, like there's like the scene where the old Russian rich lady is making the worker go into the pool. Um, and it's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, live your life. Hey, you can do whatever you want. Like you're like they're basically saying, oh, we're equals, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And she forces her to go in
And
because
then
she,
everyone after that, right?
yeah, everyone in the staff, which
The
leads to a
entire
crowd.
crew. That was hilarious. You have to go have
Yeah.
a swim. What? We have to have a
Yeah.
swim.
So can I add that at this point in the movie, we get a perspective of like the workers around the boat, and I was a bit shocked that all of them were like Filipinos, like speaking in my native language, and there's suddenly there's like subtitles of Tagalog in there, and or sorry, it's like subtitles like of English from Tagalog, and I thought that was pretty like um pretty real to me, like knowing like how a lot of Filipinos will go work in like shipping and cruising like industries just because it's an opportunity to grab. Sorry,
Notice?
sorry.
No,
Did
I'm
you guys
glad you brought
notice
that up.
that? I was gonna say, did you notice that all the rich people and all of upper management, like the captain and the event host, were white?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, instantly.
And
Yep. Yep.
Oh yeah, yeah. They're going for realism here.
And what I thought was so interesting is that we sort of when they got on the boat, I sort of assumed that it would be the servers and the wealthy, and we'd see this huge gap, and we do see a huge gap between the servers and the wealthy. Like the servers are willing to do anything they're told because they're going to get that tip. But then
Mm,
there's still these other layers under the ship, and they don't even get the opportunity for that tip.
yeah.
They're not the ones saying get that money, get that, because there's that scene where they're underneath the entire rest of the crew that's making the ship go
Hmm.
are not the servers. The servers are the ones that are at the table. And
yeah,
it
it's a
seemed like, oh, absolutely.
metaphor for the earth,
Oh,
fortunately.
A lot of celebrities, and I unfortunately listen to like a lot of like podcasts of celebrities, and it's a lot of them participate in social causes, and they should, because a lot of these causes that's been happening like around the world and in America, like we know that a lot of bad things are happening, but now there's a voice. And while it is very genuine that anyone can try to become a voice for a cause, for me sometimes it feels like it's a PR thing, like something just to look good. Like not only you're a celebrity, but then you also like uh, posted your pro BLM during those times. It's just it's a way for clout. Maybe is that the right word I'm looking for? Just for um like to get more power out of this. That like you're I don't know. What do you guys think?
I'm sure there's elements of all of that. When they said it in the film, I think they even flash it during that fashion show at the beginning, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong.
I saw a quote there, something.
They say
But
that, and
sorry.
I think they say that, and they say cynicism disguised as optimism. I made that
Masquerading as optimism.
masquerading.
Yeah.
I got the
Good one.
sense they believed it. I really thought they did, because I thought that they were so obviously disconnected with the real world
Yeah.
that it was
Hmm.
just like I don't think it was like, I agree with you about it being a lie. I'm not sure that they were intentionally lying. Like, I don't think that she has nothing to gain by making the crew people go have a swim by lying and saying they're equal, because they're not equal. They're going for a swim because you told them to have a swim.
Yeah.
You know, I get the sense that it's living in a delusion. Like, they never even talk to the people that are running the ship below. And then when Abigail takes over, they're sort of like, "What? What's happening? You know, what? We're not used to being in this position. After all, everyone's equal, right?" But I don't think they fully realize how much inequality they've created. I could be wrong, but
Yeah,
like,
and uh, there are like it's a mix, of course, like of people who think that. I think in this movie it portrays. You could argue for both sides, like
Mhm.
how they portray it. But no, that's definitely true. Like, and then it also pushes the notion that if they believe it, like they have the sense of like, oh, I earned my wealth, or like
Right.
I deserve to be in this position of power.
Yeah.
Oh, and because anyone can work and get to this position.
yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that, oh, everyone's got an opportunity.
Yeah. Like just to touch on both sides of whether the rich really believe that they're equal among like the not rich, or even the if if they dare the really poor, if like workplace or like employers in some workplaces will practice this concept of we're family. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. I feel like Jason would. Yeah, it's a common practice in workplaces, and sometimes it comes off as genuine, but sometimes it's also just a corporate concept just to give new workers, younger workers who might believe that idea. They're like, oh, like I'm part of a family. That I'm pretty equal when it's some of us are easily disposable among like from our employers. So it draws that line right of reality when it's almost like a distraction from like, oh, like I'm gonna make more money off of you.
Mm. I noticed that in the beginning where they kind of had that when the lady, the host, she was like, "Hey, if we all work really hard, or if you all work really hard, you might get a tip at the end." And it's like, well, what if you work really hard and you don't get a tip? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
it's just like bull crap, like propaganda, basically. Like, oh, hey, just work really hard and hope you get something out of this, and you may or may not. Mm.
Yeah, yeah. I think you're absolutely right, T. That's I think that's a great point. Um, this is what I appreciate about this particular film is I think there's a bit of complexity. Like, they don't really give you simple answers, even though they feel simple.
mm,
Like, obviously, this is a film that totally goes blessed are the poor. Like, that's absolutely what it is. But I still think, like, what we see happening to Abigail, I get the sense that it's a bigger problem than rich and poor. Like, you can break it down and make it that simple, but there's something about the corruptibility of money and power which can ruin
mm.
anybody. It doesn't matter whether you never had it or you grew up in it. Um, and it's what is it, It's not that, well, I mean, we all know the quote, money is the root of all evil, but that's not the quote. That's not the quote from scripture. The quote from scripture is, the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. That's very different. It's the love of money. Um, and man, I think that's on display in this one.
Hmm.
I've heard, well, I know the quote is different, but the one that far more familiar with, the money is the root of all evil. I know a lot of people argue that with money money doesn't make you evil. It just amplifies whatever you were before. So if you were like a total jerk, and if you have money, you're just going to be able to act on those actions.
Mm.
Whereas if you were a very giving person, you would be just more giving.
I think that's
But
true, but I also don't know if it's a guarantee. Like, you can be a giving person and then, get a lot more and suddenly want to give a lot less.
that's true.
I don't know, Daniel. Sorry, did I cut you off, Daniel? What were you going to say?
Oh, no. Uh, well, I was thinking of like the idea of just being wealthy. Like if you just made $200 million the next day and you're generous enough to just give 50 away, but then you live the rest of your life with 150, and it's like, were you generous or were you like, but you're still wealthy? Like, was the goal to become not wealthy but still wealthy, or like eventually just give back all your wealth with what you were given? And what does that make you as a person? Like, I feel like it's a lot more complex just when you reach that goal, if ever, if any one of us ever get there. And it's like the concept of wealthy, it varies because I'm not wealthy, but to other countries I am.
Mhm.
And what I do with my money, um, in that context, I'm pretty ashamed of it, but I don't want to think about it because it's a lot of shame. And it's just I guess the idea of privilege, when you have it, what you do with it, and how it defines you. Sorry, I totally went on my own
No, that's
my own
great.
thing there.
I love that word you used, privilege, too. I think that's an excellent question, or excellent.
Word of the day.
Yeah. I remember being a part of a conversation once, and we were having a Bible study. We were talking about money, and two of my dear friends got into a discussion about whether or not one of them could save money to buy a house, because they were still giving and being responsible with their money. They were not wealthy, but they wanted to save up to buy a house, and there became quite a discussion over whether or not they should do that. And I thought that was really interesting. Like, their attitude was not, I'm going to hoard all my money and keep it to myself, but it was,
Yeah.
I want a place to live, and I mean, I want to have my own home, like my own physical
Mhm.
building. And the argument was, yeah, but you could be using that money for something else. And I struggled with that. And because, again,
Yeah.
it's like, they were being reasonable. I also understood the idea of having money and doing something. Like, my family's going on vacation soon. We fought for that. We are fighting for that to make that happen. But could we
Yeah.
use that money for something else? Yeah, yeah. I'm sure we could.
Hard. It is uncomfortable now. I'm getting uncomfortable, like this, the idea of
Welcome
yeah,
to the
it
podcast,
is.
Daniel.
Well, yeah, it's weird, right?
it's yeah, it is weird. And I know you've been kind of hiding that. Well, not hiding, but like your vacation. Like you don't want it to be
I
too
worry
public.
what other people are going to think. because I don't make a lot of money, and I don't want them to think that I all of a sudden have a lot of money. I admit that. It's
Yeah.
It reminds me of how, and this might not fully relate. It reminds me of how people, when they give to like charities or homeless people, they want, instead of like giving cash, for example, they'll be like, "Hey, I'll buy you this."
Mm.
Like they want to help, but they don't want to give them the autonomy to help. Like it's like, let me help you, but let me help you the way I want. Like I want to control the way
Yeah.
like you live your life in a way. And
yeah,
that's what it reminds me of.
yeah. It's a fair point. It's a fair point.
Yeah. It's really layered.
Um, yeah, man, I'm telling you, because the truth is I want to be responsible with money, and I want to be a giving person.
Mm.
If
This
you
is what reminds me of
if you dropped
um,
$200 million in my lap, would I give $150 million away? I probably not. Well, my wife and kids would shoot me, but I mean, but again, you're like, well, you still got $50 million. This is the thing. This is where I really connect with this film, because I really believe it's not so much about the quality. First of all, I mean, it's definitely about compromise, because you got people that are war profiteers. You got these people that have done these terrible things to
Yeah.
make the money.
Yeah.
But I really think it has something to do with the nature of what happens to like the soul when money gets in there, or
Right.
power, money and power. You know, whether it's fighting over who pays in a restaurant or who has the most fish.
Mm.
Like there's just it's wild. We all seem to be fighting for our own interests.
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh,
this is, I was just gonna ask, have you guys ever had like an employer or something where they did what they did in this film, where the host is like, "Hey, here's this tip. Like if you work really, really hard, you might get it or not." I think like I've never had that as an employer, but I have had that feeling with like the idea of like retirement and owning a home. Like that's our generation's tip, where it's like, hey, if you work really hard, you might own a home one day. But like then it's like getting so expensive. How realistic is it? And then like things are getting crazy with like inflation, but they're
mhm.
still like selling this idea of home ownership. I don't
Have
know,
you
or even like just other tips like retirement for example or whatever.
I always like to flashback or do a research with flashback, like look back that the lives before me and how money was different then, how things were cheaper and the basic needs that people needed were just much cheaper, and this is the reality that I have to live in, that the financial goal I want, it involves hoarding a lot of money,
hmm,
and it's it's just like it's very compromising on my soul, I suppose, because one could do a lot with 100 grand rather than like a down payment on a condo in Scarborough. But
right?
it's reality, it's sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, but I've just heard so many stories of um, just talking to different generations of the people around my life and how it was so different, like how financial goals were, how it would only, and it's like it's still very similar. There's a lot of areas around the world where it's very cheap and you could obtain property really quickly if you really wanted it. You're just not going to be in the major cities. But I guess like we're all like the three of us were in a major city, and like the goals will align. Like it's gonna involve like hoarding a lot of money. But sorry, like I I bought a bike from this old man like up north, and he told me in the 70s, he came from Vietnam, and he was just in Toronto, like repairing tires for $1 an hour under the table. And for some reason, like in 5 years, he was able to save up for a house in Toronto, and it was like $60,000 at the time. I don't know how he did that with $1 an hour. But then like uh, years before I bought the bike from him, he was like, "Yeah, I sold a house and it was $2 million, like downtown Toronto." And now he's 70 and he's a millionaire, like in Markham, and that's just like wild how reality then versus now.
Yeah. When you bring that up, I think of like how this film also has a disconnect with the rich. There's a disconnect with like older generations where it's like, I mean, you know, the old saying with boomers, like, oh, don't cancel your Netflix subscription, don't order avocado toast, don't have Starbucks, you'll own a home. Like, it's just not true, right? But there's like a disconnect between like how cheap things were there, how great opportunities were, and then how great jobs were, and you didn't need school, and then if you did go to school, it was really cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like unrealistic, but it's like it also like triggers the notion like, oh, just work hard and you can be rich. I think.
Yeah.
When my parents bought their home in 1969, it cost them $30,000.
Oh my God.
And this is a split level home on a quite a. I mean, it's in Scarborough, so it's not a massive lot, but it's a massive lot compared to the new homes that are built.
That's crazy.
Yeah, no, it's wild. It's wild. Well, guys, this has been a lot of fun. This is, I mean, also kind of depressing, but I mean, I value. This has been a really valuable conversation. But we should screen it or skip it. Triangle of Sadness. Screen it or skip it.
You screen it. It's good to see. Learn a lot about the wealth gap.
Yeah, like I'd screen it. I mean, there's so many movies that talk about classism, and this is like up there with well, not really up there, but with Parasite, I suppose. That's my only
Wow,
comparison.
that is high praise.
Well,
It's
no,
better
when it
than
comes to
Downsizer.
yeah, well, yeah, no, just on that discussion about wealth and rich versus poor, it really made me think a lot, especially talking to you guys.
Yeah, I think it's a screen it for me, but a bit of a cautious one. It's not a slam it down, you gotta go see it for me. I thought it was really well done. I also think the film is, and I stand by this. I think the film is long, and I think that affects how many people will actually enjoy it. Like this film is like 2 hours and 20 minutes. It could have been an hour 50, and it wouldn't have like if you shortened every scene by 2 minutes, it it wouldn't have hurt the movie to me. But I
Yeah,
think he wanted it to be uncomfortable. He wanted us to sit in these moments. But I was like, this is good, but it's long. But I
yeah,
thought it was very well done. Like so that's why I give it a screen it. But I mean, there'll be some people who like it's you know you got to be in the right mood for it. So, but I mean, as they say, do angle or do not angle. There is no triangle.
who
Hmm.
said that?
We
Karl Marx?
nobody said that. Actually, Yoda said something very similar, but anyway, never. No, guys, thank you so much. It's been so much fun. Absolutely love this.
Thank
Um,
you.
oh, I'm glad you could come on. This is great. Great to have you on, Daniel. This has been fun. And Jason, I always love having you on too. for you at home, a reminder that you can find us wherever podcasts are available, and we are back in our 9th season. And you can find us also on YouTube, where hopefully you'll like and subscribe, or you can find us wherever you find your best podcasts or favorite podcasts. And as well, you could, if you go to the podcast page on screenfish.net, you can download Fishing for More. Small group questions to help you get the conversation started with people that you see the film with, or that you know have seen the film as well. We will be back next week, and I am looking forward to those conversations. But as always, we started the conversation. This was Screenfish.